Hello and welcome back to Making South Africa the best international team in the world. It's been a while and I do apologise. It's been way over a week since I first brought this experiment out to you and it's taken too long to get episode 2 out. Essentially, I had some issues where I accidentally deleted save files and saved over some save files when I was trying to clear some space on my computer and stuff. So we still have all the save files from when we started this experiment. I just accidentally deleted and saved over things I did after that. What it meant is I had to basically re-simulate everything again, which is why it's taken so long. And even then, I seem to have messed things up a little bit as well. So we'll go through today's episode as normal and just sort of hopefully continue in episode 3. And hopefully it'll all just go back to normal then. So if you missed what happened in the first episode or you just forgot what happened, there's a link on top of the screen right now to take you back to episode 1, recap, and then come back here. If you're all recaps, then let's get straight back into it. You'll recognise the screen because we're currently 37th in the world just after the 2026 World Cup. We've got a very good team with some players with some great potential in there as well. So hopefully in the next 4 years, they're going to really develop well and hopefully win an African Cup of Nations and try and get further in the World Cup. Now, if you want to download the save files from last episode and this episode and all future episodes and experiments, then check out the Patreon link down in the description. All the save files go up there. So if you want to get any of them, they'll all be up there, including these ones now. I took a little time to actually upload them because, of course, I had the issues with losing save files and stuff. So I thought it wasn't the best idea to post them, but they're all up there now. Everything from last episode and this episode. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight into it and go another 4 years in the future to 2030 and see what's happened. And so we're back in 2030 with South Africa currently ranked 20th in the world, which does suggest it's been a very good 4 years or so. So we're going to jump straight into the schedule and see how they got on. So we last saw them in 2026 when they got knocked out in the World Cup second round by Russia, which was quite unfortunate. Since then, though, they've won all of their competitive qualification games, but did lose to some South American sides. 2027 comes around and African Cup of Nations is dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. They're losing 2, drawing 1, not progressing through their group, so ignore that. Friendlies, though, for the most part, did pretty well, and so far, World Cup qualifying has gone okay with 2 wins over Egypt. 2028 looks pretty good. The 7-0 win over Namibia there in African Nations qualifying. So African Nations qualifying has gone well, World Cup qualifying going well, only drawing with Cameroon there, which is good to see. 2029, African Cup of Nations has gone really well this time, but they just missed out on the final by the looks of things. So they won 2 of their group stage games, lost 1 to Zimbabwe, then beat Egypt, then Cameroon, but lost to Nigeria 5-3 in extra time in the semi-finals, but they went on to beat Zimbabwe 1-0 in the 3rd, 4th playoff play. So they came 3rd in the 2029 African Cup of Nations, which is great to see. Friendlies went well apart from a 3-2 loss to Argentina, whilst the rest of the World Cup qualifying went really well. So I presume this means they are qualified for the 2030 World Cup. And they were, and they got through to the 3rd round this time, which I think is the furthest we've seen them get so far. A draw with Ukraine, a win over Japan, another win over Algeria, and lost in extra time against the Dutch there. A bit unfortunate. And now they've got African Cup of Nations qualifying once again. So the best we've seen so far from the World Cup, which explains their rise in world rankings, but it's not quite number 1 yet. We can't stop till we get to number 1. So looking at the senior squad then, we've got quite a few familiar names in there. Brian Gumidi, the goalkeeper, 169 current ability out of 176 potential. Won't reach 176, but he's got a very good level at the moment. Currently the goalkeeper for Real Madrid, so clearly shows how good of a goalkeeper he actually is if he's the Real Madrid goalkeeper. Most of the players in the senior squad right now are actually players that we saw last episode that have come through the youth ranks. So actually, we need to look through the under 23 squad and below to see any decent young players. We've got a player in here. Let's search it by potential ability instead. 171 current ability there, 2 players there. They're the best 2 players, a centre-back and an attacking midfielder / striker who's not currently with a club, interestingly enough. Most of them, though, playing for the Kaizer Chiefs in South Africa, which is interesting. Under 20 squad, we've got 164 current ability player there, who looks pretty decent. And then if we look at the under-19 squad, we've got a player with 139 potential ability. I don't think the senior squad, though, was sorted, but I think it was sorted by current ability, not potential ability. So if we go back to the senior squad, it was sorted by position, not current or potential ability. So if we search it by current ability instead, the best player we've got is Sitol, who is currently 187 potential. Oh my gosh, I've just noticed as well below this, we've got a player with 200 potential ability. What? I have never seen that before, ever in a Football Manager game. A 200 potential ability player. Unwenga he's called. A left-sided attacking midfielder, currently at PSG, who's got 31 goals in 47 appearances for South Africa. That's pretty impressive. His league form isn't actually that great, I've got to say. He not played brilliantly in the South African leagues, apart from maybe his last season with 8 goals and 5 assists. Did well went to Chelsea first and foremost for just under £1 million. Seems to have done well there with ratings over 7, but has just moved to PSG for £114 million there, and hopefully is going to do some bits for them. Wow, I've never ever seen that. That's an absolute first for me. And so looking down, we've got players, if we search it by potential ability then, we've got 200, 187, 182, 176, 173. We've got those 171s in the youth squad. So if they all manage to reach their potentials, we could have a fantastic South African side. So that's all good. We're going to go another 4 years into the future now and see what happens. Only we haven't gone 4 years into the future. We've gone 12 years into the future, which wasn't meant to happen. So the plus side is we've gone 16 years into the future today instead of the 12 years we're meant to do. The downside is we've missed out a generation of players pretty much, including that 200 potential ability player. He's still playing, I've checked him out, but we've never been able to see if he actually reached 200 current ability, which is a bit disappointing. So here he is. He's now 34 years old, currently playing for Lugo. If we look at his attribute details, we can see this is the guy that had 200 potential ability, but at 34 years old, he's now got only 90 current ability. We'll never know how good he actually got to, which is a massive shame. Looking at his mentals, though, the mentals look pretty decent, so he must have been very, very good at some point, I'm going to assume. His history, then, we saw him just join PSG, and to be fair, didn't really do much there, I'm going to say. Didn't do much at all. He had one incredible season, to be fair, with 9 goals and 13 assists. But other than that, we're not seeing great ratings. He then went to Real Madrid and got a 7.26 in his first season with 6 goals and 1 assist. But after that, only got a 7.01 as his highest rating. So I feel like he's been a bit of a letdown there, to the point where he went on a free transfer after being signed for Real Madrid for £84 million. Free transfer to Real Oviedo. Scored quite a few goals there, but that's in the second division. And then joined Lugo in what actually is the third division. It says Spanish second division B, but that's the third tier of Spanish football. So maybe he didn't quite reach that 200 current ability. He seems like he's been a bit of a waste, to be fair. A player that was once sold for £114 million went on to go and play in the Spanish third tier, still when he was relatively young. Well, 32 years old is pretty old for a footballer, but still, with 200 potential ability, you'd think that he'd be able to stay at his peak for a bit longer. Either way, we're not here to talk about him, we're here to talk about South Africa, and obviously he's helped quite a lot with 101 goals and 150 caps for South Africa. That's quite a lot. So where are they in world ranking, South Africa? Currently 7th, wow. That's pretty decent. They got to 7th before, but are now 7th again after a bit of a drop down to 10th at one point. But okay, this looks good. So what we're going to do then is go through 12 years of fixtures. So at the very end of 2030 then, some decent results, winning pretty much all their games there, which is good to see. 2031 African Cup of Nations. They go all the way to the final, but then lose to Tunisia 3-2 in the final. That's very frustrating there. But at least they get into a final. Good progress. The best we've seen from them so far in the African Cup of Nations. Rest of the year looks pretty good, apart from a loss to England in a friendly. 2032, won every single game. You love to see it. 2033, won all but one game in 2033, including the African Cup of Nations. They won the African Cup of Nations there with a 2-0 victory over the Ivory Coast. Fantastic stuff there. Drew to Argentina at the end of the year to make an almost perfect year as well. So very good stuff there. Our first one we've seen in the African Cup of Nations. 2034 World Cup. They get to it, but get knocked out in the third round by Portugal, which is a little bit disappointing, I've got to say. Losing 2-1 there. 2035, another African Cup of Nations win there. That's 2 now. Senegal, they beat in the final 1-0. And then did very well in friendlies, not losing a game all year. 2036, a flawless year there. Fantastic stuff. 2037, another African Cup of Nations win. That's the third in a row we've seen them win now. 3-0 against Tunisia. Great to see. But they did lose to Egypt in the group stages. That's interesting. Did pretty well in friendlies for the rest of the year, apart from losses to Argentina and the Dutch. 2038, only the World Cup second round. They seem to be able to dominate Africa, but when it comes to the world stage, they can't beat the European teams by the looks of things, losing to Switzerland and Norway there, which isn't great, I've got to say, but won every other game pretty much, which is good. 2039, a fourth African Cup of Nations win in a row. Getting a bit boring, the African Cup of Nations now, isn't it? If they keep winning it every single time. 2040, almost a flawless year. 1 draw with Libya there right at the end. 2041, A fifth African Cup of Nations win. You love to see it for them. Lost to Zimbabwe, though, who seem to be pretty decent. They've beaten South Africa a number of times, we've seen. Once again, though, they are being overturned by teams like Portugal, Japan and Argentina. So outside of Africa, they are struggling quite a bit. 2042, though, they are not struggling. Oh, agonisingly close. They lose the World Cup final 2-1 to France there. Was it close at all? If you click on the fixture, it was very close, to be fair. I mean, possessionally, France had it, but stat-wise, it was close. France took a 2-0 lead, and South Africa seemed to maybe control it after that, so perhaps they just didn't switch on the first half or something, but that is really unfortunate for South Africa there. Losing in the final, all the way they got there, beating Romania, of all teams, in the quarterfinal. That's pretty good going. Wow, all the way to the final, couldn't quite do it, which is a great shame. World Cup then. Who's won the World Cup the past few times then? So we've seen the Dutch win it, Brazil, Portugal, Switzerland, Argentina and France. Runners-up have been Italy, England, the Dutch, Spain, Portugal and South Africa. And then Portugal have come Portugal have done really well. They've come third twice, second once and won it once as well, which is really good. England have come second and third a couple of times. Switzerland have come third and they've won it as well. So Switzerland have done pretty well. Where are they in world rankings at the moment? But 11th, below us, interestingly enough. I presume France are number one, aren't they? Second right now. What is the world rankings then? Portugal number one. There's France, Argentina, Spain, Brazil, England and South Africa. Okay, interesting. So really good, sustained, continued progress from South Africa then. Hopefully in the next episode we can see them go one step further and win that World Cup. In terms of the senior squad then, if we search it by current ability, we've got some decent players in hand now. Now we've missed obviously a generation of players because of my own incompetence and stuff like that, but it looks pretty good, actually, this South African side. They've got loads of players with 140 current ability and above, which is what you're looking for. Maybe 150 current ability above is what you're looking for, really, to be number one in the world. But they've got a decent side there. It's not bad. Got some very good players. Potentiality-wise, young players in the squad with good potential. So we'll see these guys rise up a little further. How's the B team? No one in the under-23 squad. Players with some decent potential. Not quite as many as I would have hoped to see in the under-23 squad. Under-20s, again, not quite as high potential as I would have wanted to see. And under-19s, there's a few good players there, but nothing major in terms of potential ability. Let's have a quick look at Cape Town City, for example. Okay, the first thing we've seen, obviously right at the start of this, we boosted the facilities massively of the clubs in the top two divisions. If we edit club details now, facilities, they have dropped a bit, but not massively. Not massively. If we just look at another one, for example, edit club details, facilities. Drop, yeah, okay, these guys have dropped a little bit more. I think what we do then going forward is ramp up the facilities once again for all these teams for the next sort of big push to try and get to number one in the world. Might take a little while for the facilities to actually create some good players, so we might see a little dip in world ranking. I don't think we've seen that really before, but hopefully it will help us get to number one in the world if we do that. Just before we finish today as well, we'll look at second nationality is South African to see which players could have been eligible for South Africa but chose to play for other countries. So if we click OK on that, there are quite a few decent players with over 150 potential that could have played for South Africa but chose someone else. Particularly this guy right at the top, 28 years old, 164 current ability. He could have been very good, could have been very useful to a squad. Most of them are actually quite old and kind of actually not really reaching their potential. Their current abilities aren't fantastic, so perhaps they couldn't have helped out the national squad that much. But if they had reached their potential, or some of these younger guys that might reach their potential had chosen South Africa, we could have seen a slightly different version of events maybe. Okay, well that's it for today's episode. Once again, I do apologise for delay of it, but there we go, sometimes these things happen. Next episode we'll try and finish this one off and see if we can get South Africa to number one in the world. That would be absolutely fantastic. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, please do drop a like on the video for me, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Goodbye.